Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuhu to all my brothers and sisters in Islam, and peace and blessings to all my brothers and sisters in humanity.
To you also, sir. I wish from the deepest part of my heart health and happiness to your family. And Happy New Year.
This is the first of a series of videos we're going to be doing on misconceptions, which is the accusations aimed at Islam. Most of these claims come from Christian missionaries, whether they're based on deliberate deception, so that they're actually out to deceive people, or whether it's just misunderstanding, that they've misunderstood terms, or they've misunderstood the language, or something along these lines.
No, there is a third option. Maybe they are right. There is this third option. We'll see.
But basically, these misconceptions. So, for example, you have like taqiyya. This is one thing we'll be covering. You have, does the sun set in a muddy pool? That's another one. The other one I can think of is, for example, does sperm come from the ribs?
Yes, I have seen the arguments Muslims put forward to defend these things. You don't have a chance, in other words. Okay, so what you are doing is kind of a suicide.
Anyway, so you get the idea, isn't it? Right, now today's misconception we want to deal with, it's basically a claim that came out of the debate between Muhammad Hijab and David Wood with regards Allah praying. So David Wood made a claim that Allah's praying. And what's happened from that, Christian missionaries who have watched this video, they think they have something. And
let me guess, you will prove that I made 2 videos and had said false things. Okay, if you can manage that, I will apologize.
We've seen it online, and in Hyde Park, we've had Christian missionaries asking pathetic questions like, how many times does he pray? Or, who is the hero of the prayer?
Yes, let's make fun of people's weakest qualities. That's the right thing to do, especially if it is a lady.
And it's just ridiculous. So I was going to do a direct response to this, but we have a brother called Ayoub, and he has a YouTube channel called Simply Seerah.
Hello, Ayoub. My name is Socrates. Although I haven't seen your video, maybe, you never know, you may have a chance.
And mashallah, that brother has done such a detailed response to this misconception. So what we decided to do for this particular misconception is that we're going to roll his video after this introduction, and you will see such a breakdown. Now, this particular video is not just for Muslims. Alhamdulillah, Muslims will watch it. They'll see the deception that's gone on. They'll know how to respond to it should anyone come and be stupid enough after it's been refuted so many times. But anyway, they'll know how to respond to it.
Now you installed the fear in my heart, but I take the challenge.
And even if Muslims start to have doubts within themselves, how is this true? It will respond to that. But what it will do also is highlight the deceptive nature of Christian missionaries. When you actually see how it's broken down, you will actually see how they twisted things. And this should make you Christians think, not you missionaries because I know how you operate, but lay Christians, when they see the lengths that their missionaries and scholars have to go to twist something, to find something to attack Islam with.
So, you made some significant statements. First of all, people like David Wood are deceptive. Then you said they need to twist things to make Islam look bad. So, we will see who does the twisting, okay? Because I'm watching Islamic videos 10 years now, and the only one who does twisting is you, okay? All the twisting is done by your side. So, in Hamdulillah, we will expose you in this video one more time.
You should start questioning this. And once you see the breakdown of this and you realize, wow, this is just a simple thing, so easy to refute it, question the things they say. Don't take everything at face value. Question what they say.
Yes, exactly. To all Muslims, please question things. Because as you will see here, how easy we will defeat the Poor, the damn dogs interrupted my line of thinking.
So anyway, so this video, mashallah, will follow after this introduction. What I will say as well is that if you do enjoy the style and the breakdown of the video by Brother Abu Ayoub, he also has a podcast called Muslims Apologetic Podcast. Now, he does this with another brother you may know, Ijaz Ahmed. He was one of the brothers, mashallah, who came to the park recently, and some of you guys will just caught a glimpse of the knowledge that he has, mashallah. So, like I said, if you like the style of what he does, then inshallah, please subscribe to their podcast, and you get so much valuable information from that. And that's that. So, inshallah, pay attention, watch the video. Inshallah, we're looking forward to the comments. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Today I'm going to be going through a lecture series talking about the subject which is entitled, Does Allah Pray? A detailed response to missionaries' false claim against Islam. My name is Abu Ayoub and I run Simply Seerah. It's both a YouTube channel and a website, and you can find me on Twitter and Facebook as well. So this is going to be part one of this particular subject, and we're going to go through a series of this covering this subject, inshallah. It's going to be quite an extensive lecture, and this is the first part of that series. So an intro into the argument now.
Yes, before we do that, let's lay down our presuppositions and test whose presupposition represent better reality. Your presupposition is that this verse is from God, therefore it cannot possibly mean that God is praying. So the explanation must be we misunderstand the verse. That is your presupposition. My presupposition is that the people who wrote the Quran, in their haste to give status to Muhammad, made an error and presented God praying for Muhammad, missing that prayer implies asking good favor from God. Okay, those are our two presuppositions. Now, let's test whose presupposition represents better reality.
So the verse in question of Does Allah Pray? It goes as Inna Allaha wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu tasliman. So the general translation of this, of the verse 3356, is from Sahih International, which is translated as, Indeed, Allah confers blessings upon the Prophet, and his angels ask him to do so. O you who have believed, ask Allah to confer blessings upon him, and ask Allah to grant him peace.
Okay, now let's see in the dictionary what blessing means. The act of words of a person who blesses. A special favor, mercy or benefit, the blessing of liberty. A favor or gift bestowed by God, thereby bringing happiness, the invoking of God's favor upon a person. The son was denied his father's blessing. Oops. Well, as it seems, you are right. Okay. Indeed, Allah confers blessing upon the Prophet, and his angels ask him to do so. Okay, that makes sense, actually. I think I should apologize. What's happening here? I need to apologize. Well, I will ask the blessings of Christian Prince.
This is chapter 33, verse number 56. It says in Arabic, Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Allah and his angels praying on Muhammad, on the Prophet. Now, if you see the Muslim translation, just to show you how Muslims do lie when they translate, they said, Allah and his angels sending blessing on the Prophet. I challenge any Muslim to show me the word blessing in here and how the word blessing came in the translation. This is the word yusallun as you see it next to my mouse. Yusallun, you see it? We will go. Yusallun is simply, it's a continued verb. It's a continuous, you know. So it's not only one time they pray, they always pray on Muhammad. So in here, let us say the Muslims say it's a blessing. If we take the word to the Islamic dictionaries, 8 Arabic Islamic dictionaries made by Muslims, approved by Muslims. This is a website, all of you, you know it. Let me go there. It's called Shakir. Shakir is #1 software and the top website for translation. Have 8 Islamic dictionaries. In the same time, they translate to you what those dictionaries saying from Arabic to English. The word Salah have only one meaning. It doesn't mean blessing. It doesn't mean send a blessing. It doesn't mean anything except, as you see, pray. This word, by the way, is not the same as this word. It might look for you the same, but if you see there is vowels in the top of it, those change the meaning. This is a Salah. Salah, which means put somebody in the fire. Okay, this one is Salah. It is different, so don't be confused. So this is the word we are talking about. Salah have one meaning only: pray. No blessing, no such a thing. So the Muslim, when they translate the word pray to blessing, simply they are trying to cover a problem they have in their religion. Now, why this will cause them a problem? Because simply, if their God, he never showed himself in 3-person, as in Christianity, or 2-person, how he will explain to me that Allah is praying?
Okay, for a moment there, I thought it was the time a Muslim defeated me in an argument. Really. But then I started wondering, why is this person so eager to continue trying to explain something so straightforward? Because if the word was blessing, then Abu Ayoub wouldn't need to make a 1-hour rebuttal, because then it's straightforward. But that means that you also knew it was not blessing. It was pray. Okay? You deceptive little man. You almost had me wonder there. Was that the first time I will be defeated by a Muslim in an argument? No, it wasn't. And now that we know it's pray, continue.
And but for this particular lecture series, we want to translate it exactly how it is to be able to study this. So my particular translation of this is going to be word for word, and we're not going to translate these 3 words here that are highlighted in red. Yusallun, sallu, these are both the same word, and sallimu. So the way we would translate this then is, indeed Allah and his angels yusallun upon the Prophet, and we don't know what yusallun is right now. O you who have believed, send salat and salam upon him. Okay? And the reason why I want to do this is because we're going to work around the words to understand what those words mean by the statements of the scholars. So we're going to begin this as if we don't understand what this means. And I want to show you exactly how the scholars approach words that they might not know exactly the meaning of it, right?
We know exactly how Muslim scholars approach those things, okay? The science of hadith is the science of deception, the science of gullibility, okay? They have a presupposition that they necessarily need to make the Quran work, and they mess with the evidence, okay? They mess with things to make it work. That is the science of lying, literally, okay? The science of hadith is literally the science of lying. Islam, the religion who made lying a science, okay? So, we already know what Muslim scholars will say, but we don't care, okay? We had, as Christian Prince said, how many? 8 Arabic dictionaries confirming this word means prayer. Now, if we take your presupposition, then okay, yes, there must be some other explanation that fits the narrative of the Quran, of Muslim, of cultist. Why we should take your presupposition? Why not take my presupposition? That this is an error. Or the Christian presupposition, that this is the Trinity. Why take your presupposition? Well, this video has a lot of blah blah blah. Okay, what I was saying? Yes. Why we take your presupposition? Remember what was my presupposition? It was Muslim in their eager to make Muhammad look good, to give status to Muhammad. They confused themselves and they even said that even God pray for Muhammad. The same way they had Muhammad's name in the Shahada, in the throne of God. Okay, those are errors they are making in order to give status to Muhammad. And it's not only here, that's a pattern in the Quran, a pattern of making errors to give status to Muhammad. For example, God advising Muhammad's visitors not to come early for dinner. Okay, that's insane. All insane people believe that's actually true. Okay, all insane people believe that's true. But why Muslims say that? Because they want to give a status to Muhammad and they make an error. God abolishing adoption for the favor of Muhammad. Again, that disproves Islam. But why Muslims said that? Because they want to give status to Muhammad. Because Islam is a political ideology that aims to submit people in this world. Okay, that's why they are so eager to give status to Muhammad. Because Islam was a constitution for the first Islamic empires. They want to project power to society. They don't care about the godly stuff if they make contradictions. Another example, in the Hadith, God says, "Peace be upon you." Muhammad, even God says, "Peace be upon you." I mean, that's ridiculous, okay? Not even God dares say the name of Muhammad without peace be upon him. Imagine in North Korea, okay, they have a say for the supreme leader. And every time the Tao Hen Tung name was mentioned, they say, "Oh angels, bless his name." Okay, something like that. And then you see God saying the same thing. Shao Shen Chung, "Oh, bless his name." Okay, so we see a pattern going on here. Muslim trying to give insane status to Muhammad. And you make errors.
Now, I want to cover the goal the missionaries have with presenting this particular verse. What they say is when they present this verse, what they're going to say is Yusallun is going to be the understanding for the Muslim. So we have 5 daily prayers, salat, and we consider that to be prayers. The category, we call that salat. So what they're going to try to argue is Yusallun in this particular verse, Inna Allah wa malaikatuhu yusalluna ala nabi, that they're going to say that that's similar to the salat of what the Muslims do, the 5 daily prayers or the sunnah prayers, so on and so forth. And they are going to try their utmost to uphold this concept. Okay, and they're going to play the ignorant card. They're going to act like they don't really know. They're going to ignore all the statements of the scholars, so on and so forth, right?
Scholars, okay. You keep insisting that we should trust the science of gullibility, the science of lying. Do you want me to give you what scholars take into account when they make their scientific assessment? In the science of hadith. Okay, let me read you what is the science of hadith. Fabrication in prophetic tradition, casual factors and remedial measures. I don't know what that means at all, but it doesn't matter. Let's continue. The contribution of Muslim scholars to the authentication of hadith. The contribution of Muslim scholars? You mean those who you not kill for criticizing Islam? Those scholars, eh? Yeah. You mean biased cultists? Third, the Quran and authentication of hadith. So you compare the hadith with the Quran. Let's stay here for a minute. You admit here that in order to see whether a hadith is true, you compare it with the Quran. That is you admitting that you are lying, in other words. Okay? You are making historical evidence to fit with your cult, in other words. Let's continue. Authentication of hadith through rationally authentic traditions. Oh? So, the historical evidence, you compare them with your traditions and you figure out who is authentic. Is that what you are doing? Okay, that's again you admitting that you are lying. Okay, Number 5, authentication of hadith through sound reasoning. What? You use your reasoning? Eh? Is that what's going on? You use your reasoning, eh? So, you take the hadith that supposedly is historical evidence and then you use your reasoning. Let's see, it's authentic. My reasoning now say that that's authentic. Bravo. Authentication of hadith through established history. You have also history, eh? After your admission that you tingle with the evidence. Okay, let's continue. Moderation in relation to authentication of hadith. I don't know what that means. Al-Bukhari's chapter on predetermination, an evaluation and interpretation. Okay, as we imagined, the science of your hadith is the science of gullibility, the science of lying. Literally, okay? If you take the definition of lying in the dictionary, this is what you admit you are doing, okay? You tingle with the evidence to fit your narrative. That is lying. So, Islam, the religion who made lying a science. Literally, now we are talking about, the religion who teach lying in universities. If tomorrow I wanted to make a university of lying, I would use the same methods. I will take verbatim the screen I'm showing you now, and I will use this method, okay? The contribution of liars to the authentication of hadith. Let's compare reality with the book of lying. Authentication of hadith through sound reasoning of liars cultist. Okay.
And so after making this false premise, which is based upon the fallacy of equivocation, as we're going to see in a moment what this definition is, they'll then proceed to ask the Muslim, who is Allah praying to, right? And of course, this is based upon they're setting up a false premise already, and they're demanding that you interpret the verse the way that they do with the fallacy of equivocation.
There isn't any fallacy of equivocation. The only fallacy there is here is the fallacy of confirmation bias that you are doing, and also the fallacy of special pleading, as we will see next.
Right? And the reason why the missionary is doing this, the goal behind this is twofold. The first one is they're trying to justify Jesus praying to the Father in the Bible, all right, while at the same time being still considered a God.
I'm an atheist, but you keep making me defend Christianity. In other words, I am the atheist soldier for Christ. And yes, I proudly accept this title. And I really hope Christ remembers that in the Judgment Day. Okay, Jesus, just remember that. Christian theology doesn't have a problem with this because Christ was supposedly a human at this phase. He had the nature of human completely. It was not a semi-god when he was on earth. So, if we assume Christ was a human, what he would have been? Atheist. He would read Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. No, he would have believed in God. And as a human, he prayed to God.
Because the missionaries, they find Muslims, when they approach them, the Muslims will present the multiple passages in the Bible where Jesus is actually praying to the Father, requesting something that he cannot provide himself. So the Muslim will take this as a proof that Jesus isn't God, right? And what then they'll try to do is then they'll look at the Quran and Sunnah and then try to extrapolate and interpret some type of prayer or something that would show that the God of Islam is asking and requesting a possible second God in the Godhead, like that that Jesus is doing.
And for their good luck, yes, the Quran is that stupid. It includes that in the scriptures. Okay, they were lucky, in other words, that you were that stupid. What's your point? I don't get it. They had this motivation and reality confirmed their motivation. In other words, you have a strange delusion that you think the Quran is not that stupid when it is. The problem is with your perception.
And again, this is false interpretation, as we're going to see.
The only thing we saw so far is 8 Arabic dictionaries affirming the Christian position. Okay? The false interpretation is something you insert here out of your poo-poo.
So that's the first reason why. They're trying to find something, a justification. So you'll hear them, they'll say, well, I believe my God can pray, and why can't yours? Which is ridiculous because, and on the basis, as we're going to see, the basis foundation, theologically, this is impossible for a God to pray when praying is, if you're going to consider prayer ibadah, as we're going to see in the upcoming lectures, where you're asking for something you can't provide yourself, then this is considered kufr in Islam. It's you're not a Muslim anymore. Your theology is broken. You don't understand Allah with the proper understanding.
Okay, so the Quran that says God prayed for Muhammad is wrong then. Are you not a Muslim now? Because according to what you just said, you shouldn't be a Muslim.
So that's the first reason why they do this. The second reason is they're trying to insinuate multi-personalities within the Islamic understanding of God.
My friend, you're just describing the argument. The argument of Christians is the Quran says that God prayed for Muhammad. Therefore, that verse fails theologically. Therefore, Islam is not true. That is the argument, okay? You repeating the argument doesn't refute that argument. You didn't discover any secret conspiracy. We say it loudly and proudly. You are talking like you discovered some secret conspiracy. No, we say it loudly and proudly.
So they're trying to find a Trinity or a Bayun God. They're trying to force that idea upon Islam because
it says that in your book. That's the reason. Okay? We are not forcing anything. We came, we opened your book, and we read Pray for Muhammad. Okay? We didn't force anything. You are trying to force something out. Okay? Let's make things clear. It's not our fault the Quran fails. We are not forcing anything. The emperor doesn't wear any clothes, in other words, okay? Your argument is that the emperor definitely wears clothes because he wouldn't go out naked. You're inserting your contradictions into the argument.
For those that don't know, for the Muslims that are listening, Christianity, they believe in a triune Godhead, meaning that there's 3 personalities in one being. 3 persons, one being. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And they speak to one another, and they try to find this type of relationship where they can pray to one another, they can love one another eternally, and all this stuff. And they're trying to force that with this question. So they say, well, who is Allah praying to? Then they're trying to insinuate that possibly Allah is a part of a Godhead, and then since he's praying to somebody else to provide something which he can't provide himself. This is ridiculous. There's nowhere in the verse does it insinuate this. Nowhere, nor does anywhere in Islamic doctrine, theology, does it insinuate that God is asking somebody else outside himself for something that he can't provide himself.
And yet it does. Okay? And yet it does. The evidence shows in the verse in front of you that he actually does. You are tinkering with the evidence. The evidence, if you take them verbatim, say that God is praying. You tinker with the evidence to make the evidence fit your narrative. So let's hear again what you said.
And they're trying to force that with this question. So they say, well, who is Allah praying to?
No, they are not trying to force anything. In the text, it's exactly what they are claiming. You try to fit the evidence to your narrative. That is what is going on. Confirmation bias. So in reality, this is not the fallacy of equivocation. This is in fact the fallacy of confirmation bias. Okay, they are not trying to force anything. You are trying to force out something.
Okay, so now let's, with the word salat, let's cover what the fallacy of equivocation is, right? The definition: in logic, the term equivocation is a fallacy which results when a particular word or expression has multiple meanings, but is used as if it only has one interpretation, right? And that's what's taking place right here.
Wow, you wrote down a definition. That means that you know what you are talking about. Okay, let me do the same. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for interpret favor and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. See, I can do the same. Okay, you gave a definition.
They're demanding that salat means exactly how it's being interpreted for the Muslim.
No, they demand salat means what is interpreted by 8 Arab dictionaries. That is what they are doing. The real question is what you are doing. And the answer is you are doing confirmation bias. You dismiss clear-cut evidence because they doesn't fit with your narrative.
For the believer. And they're saying, well, then that has to be Allah and the angels as well. This in turn leads to an incorrect conclusion based upon one or more false premises. So we're going to break this down and I'm going to show you how this can be false and give you examples.
Okay, bravo. This is what you need to do. Explain how is this false.
I'm going to give you two basic examples at first. And then at the end, I'm going to give you the example that the Christians are presenting to show you how they're false. But before we go into that, two things I want to cover. The first thing is I want to cover or explain that whenever we're going to be presenting an argument, we need to identify the category of the person doing the action. And then after we identify the category, then we can look at what the action is, or the verb, as we're going to see most of the time. And both can be different, and both can actually affect one another. And you're going to see what I mean right now in the first example. So example one, we have premise one. P1 is it's usually defined as. And the argument goes, this is just an example. So your average phone can run 8 hours if fully charged. Now here we have the category of phone and the action of run. And this means electronics running. Premise two, the out of shape man can only run for 10 minutes. Okay. And again, we have the category of the out of shape man and then the action of running.
Okay, you just explained the equivocation fallacy. Thank you. We are now informed. Now, the only thing left to do is drive the connection of this fallacy to your specific example. You gave the fallacy, now you need to make the connection.
Therefore, if you electrocute the man, he should be able to run longer. Meaning, if you apply what you did to the phone to the human being, since you think that the running is exactly the same, then you should be able to get the same conclusion, which is false. It's a false conclusion, right? And the reason why it's false is because the phone, that running for the phone, the category that's happening in premise one is different than the category that's happening in premise two, right?
So, you are implying that here we have a category mistake. Okay. Who is praying? A telephone? Eh? Who is praying? A toaster? No, humans are praying. And here, who is praying? God and his angels is praying. That's not a category mistake, because God and his angels are also beings. They are not inanimate objects, but that's not even the point. What you are saying implies that the word actually has a double meaning, and what you are dreaming in your dream is actually true. You are not an Arab, my friend, okay? You are from Pakistan or from Egypt. We had an Arab person, Christian prince, and 8 Arabic dictionaries confirming that this word, yusalum, doesn't mean anything else other than prayer. The word blessings in Arabic is salam. And look this, please. In the relevant verse, it includes this word. In the translation, you gave forward, okay? That is your translation. So, the author is conscious of this word, but it's later on. So it starts with Yusalum, which means God prayed, and then, oh, people give your blessings. So why didn't God use the same word, salam, in both cases, if he wanted to say blessings? And there's a perfectly good word that means blessings, and he already uses in the same paragraph. And he chose a completely different word, shalom, which only means prayer.
Right? Phone is a category, and so therefore the meaning of run, or the action or the verb, changes based upon the category of the person doing it. And the out of shape man, the human being, when he runs, it changes based upon the category of the person. The word run changes, right? Second example I'm going to give you is based upon, I'm going to use the Bible now. And just to give you an example of how we'd say somebody who's biased can approach the Bible in a very rude way. Let's just say, for example, an atheist approached the Bible and they wanted to make fun of the Bible. And it's very easy if you're biased and if you were going to use this methodology of equivocation.
You are the only bias here. Let me bring you back to reality. You are making confirmation bias. The word is actually saying praying. Okay? You are biased and you want it to mean something else. Okay? All the examples you are giving is just describing a logical fallacy. You never made the connection. Okay?
Meaning that you're demanding one particular interpretation of a word, and then it has to be laid out, drawn out on all the words then, therefore, and that it can't change. So, premise one, a man needs a light to smoke, i.e. a flame. Now, for our brothers that are living in the UK, I don't know if you use this term as well, light. You know, in America, we say, can I get a light? If you want to get ask for a lighter or matches. So, this example, premise one, a man needs a light to smoke. Okay, premise two, in the Bible, God says, let there be light. Okay, now we don't know exactly what light means here, but if we're going to play this game of equivocation, imagine an atheist doing this, right? Therefore, the God of the Bible must smoke, right? An atheist could come and they could laugh and then lie and laugh and say, God had a cigarette in the beginning of creation and he said, let there be light to be able to light a cigarette.
Okay, good job explaining to us, very efficiently, I might add, the fallacy of equivocation. Okay, now you need to make the connection why that fallacy applies here. You never made the connection so far. Okay, now it's time to make the connection.
Now, the Christian, of course, I want our Christian friends that are listening to this, we know what you're going to say automatically to this. Of course, this isn't real, because we have in our theology a negation of false attributes, meaning that already the theology of Christianity, even though Christians believe that God can come incarnate, there's still some positive attributes theologically for who God is. And of course, his power and his lack of need of other things, even though within the Godhead, sadly, they think that there's three persons that need one another for other things. Nevertheless, when it comes to things like this, very, very clear and apparent insulting attributes that are being applied to God, they will say that previously there's already a negation of God ever having needed to smoke.
Okay, you just admitted that you are going for a confirmation bias. What you just said? You said that we will make the verse fit with what we already believe, like Christians do. Okay? Although Christians didn't do that now, it just gave a hypothetical scenario, you admit that you will work the evidence to fit your narrative. That is what you are doing right now.
Or need of anything, because smoking itself is an addiction. It means that this is a lowly status, so on and so forth, right? So there's already we would say the refutation of this is theological before even it's linguistic.
We don't give a rat's ass about your theological, only the linguistic, because there are other alternatives, like it's referring to the Trinity. People just made an error, as I believe. There are many other hypotheses, and why should we follow what you believe, contrary to the evidence? Because that word says pray. Okay, any way you turn it, it says pray. Not blessing, not blue, nothing. It says pray. And moreover, you claim that Islamic tradition and theology favors your assumption. No, Islamic tradition favors the assumption that you work the evidence to fit your narratives, and you are cultists, and you don't have intellectual integrity at all, okay? You are prosecuting every critic. That is your tradition. And your theology, we see all over the Quran that you give insane status to Muhammad without considering the implications. So none of those support your claim.
Okay. And so now going into the argument that missionaries are saying with salat, this is the same argument that we say. We say theologically there's already a negation of what you're trying to insinuate.
You insisting theologically, to me, sounds like an admission of defeat right now. Okay, I hope next you will show how this word doesn't mean pray, and it means blessings. Because you keep insisting now, theologically, it's like admitting defeat. I hope you have something more.
Let me break down the argument and then we can go through it. So the third example is premise 1, Muslims do the action of salat as worship and request to help of help and aid. So our prayer, the 5 daily prayers and the sunnah, we call it the sunnah prayers, the extra prayers. We have the obligatory prayers and the sunnah prayers. Number 1, we're following the command of God, right? And why do we follow the command of God? Because we fear God, we hope for his reward, okay? And we need his help. We're in need of God. Now, theologically, God, in our theology, we believe God is not in need of anybody else. Right? Everything is in need of God, but God is not in need of anything else. So when we go to premise 2, which the Christian will say, Allah also does the action of salat in verse 33:56 of the Quran, we already know theologically, due to the negation of false attributes, that this cannot be the salat that Muslims do.
In other words, confirmation bias. You are forcing your meaning into the verse. Okay, I hope you have something else to say, because if this is all you've got, it's really disappointing. I was hoping something more challenging.
But the missionary will say this. Their conclusion will be, right, that Allah must be worshiping and asking for help from someone else, which is theologically just like the God of the Bible would be asking for a light to smoke a cigarette. We would say for God to be doing an action of worship, what we call in Arabic ibadah, right? Which that translates as prayer. Ibadah is prayer, which means worship, which means seeking help and aid. For you to say that God is doing that, you've completely looked over the foundational theological concepts within Islam.
Yes, within Islam. The people who are challenging you now are Christians and atheists. Me, I'm an atheist. Okay, so what it is in Islam, it's completely irrelevant. Okay, in fact, not only doesn't help your case, we know that everything in Islam is a big confirmation bias. We know how you treat evidence. We know how free is your intellectual inquiry. Yes, people, let's trust the cult that kills its critics. Let's trust biased cultists of the worst kind to be objective.
And you're just looking at it linguistically. And you're demanding a singular interpretation of that word, which is the fallacy of equivocation.
I think you just accepted that linguistically it says prayer. I think you just accepted that. Okay, as for the fallacy of equivocation, so just because you described a fallacy, that doesn't mean it applies necessarily to everything. You never demonstrated the connection of this fallacy to this specific example. Do Arabs use this word in other ways? No, they don't. Does any dictionary translate this word in another way? No, it doesn't. So, where is the fallacy? You invented the fallacy here.
So now aside from that, we're just going to go through a quick reply as to why this is false. Okay, we're going through this whole lecture series to go really, really in depth linguistically why this is false. But simply there is, we call it a manhaj, or a way, an approach for our the way that we study Islam. So before we go into depth into this lecture and present the arguments from the various angles as to why missionaries' logic is not only incorrect but hypocritical, I would first like to present the quickest reply possible to this doubt. So if you don't want to watch anything else, this is sufficient, just this first lecture. So before we begin, though, we need to establish some basic foundational concepts as to what is considered the sources of religious doctrine in Islam. Okay? And it is through this that we can find out what is the real interpretation of any particular verse or practice.
We know the science of hadith is the science of lying, the science of gullibility. We don't trust Muslim scholars and we don't care what they say. Okay? Why should we trust you, really? You are just deceiving people. You are just tinkering with the evidence to always fit your narrative. That's not science. That's the complete opposite of science. So we don't care about this stuff. The only thing that matters is the linguistic. And so far you said nothing about that, except of an almost admission. Okay, I'm not sure that it actually says prayed.
Okay. Islam is based upon, we have a text. We have the Quran and Sunnah, right? As we're going to see. We have doctrine. We have sources for our doctrine. We don't.
Okay, let's go forward these excuses. Now let's go to the linguistic. Okay, 2 months later, and you forgot to go to the linguistic. Very disappointing. You ruined not only your video, my video also. You made a 1-hour video, and what you did is explain the definition of a logical fallacy. Thank you for that. We are now informed. And then you only said why that doesn't make sense inside Islamic scriptures. Nothing else. You never even attempted to demonstrate that the word means something else than what it says. Maybe in the second video, I think. We will see. Thank you.
So we will say, "Oh Allah, you saved us from hellfire. You entered us into the paradise. You have allowed us to live forever and ever. Jannah.
No fear. Girl, you live your life like a sleeping swan. Your time has come to go deeper. Girl, your final journey has just begun. Your destiny shows the reaper. No fear. Destination darkness. No fear. Destination darkness. No fear.